The second book of Ezra, also known as the fourth book of Ezra. Chapter 1 to 3.
Chapters 1 and 2 are not included in a majority of the ancient manuscripts and have therefore been omitted.
Chapter 3. In the 30th year after the overthrow of the city, I was in Babel, I, Shealtiel, who am also called Ezra. I was perturbed as I lay on my bed, and my thoughts welled up in my heart, because I saw the desolation of Zion, and the abundant wealth of those who lived in Babel. Hence, my spirit was agitated so greatly that I began to anxiously address the Most High, and said, "O Lord, Lord, at the beginning, when you, and you alone, planted the earth, did you not speak and command the dust so that it gave you Adam, a lifeless body? Yet he was the creation of your hands, and you breathed the spirit of life into him, and he was made alive in your presence. And you led him into the garden that your right hand had planted before the earth appeared. And you laid one commandment upon him, but he disregarded it. And immediately you appointed death for him and for his descendants. And nations and tribes sprang from him, peoples and clans without number. And every nation followed its own inclination. They acted impiously in your sight and rejected your commands. However, you did not hinder them. But again, in due time, you brought the flood upon the inhabitants of the world and destroyed them. And the same fate befell all of them. Just as death came upon Adam, so the flood upon them. But you spared one of them, Noah, with his household, all the righteous who have descended from him. When the inhabitants of the earth began to multiply, they produced children and peoples and many nations. And again, they began to be more impious than their forefathers were. And it came to pass, when they committed iniquity in your sight, that you chose one of them for yourself, whose name was Abraham. And you loved him, and to him alone you revealed the end of the times, secretly by night. You made an everlasting covenant with him, and promised him that you would never forsake his descendants. And you gave him Isaac, and to Isaac you gave Jacob and Esau. Moreover, you set Jacob apart for yourself, but Esau you rejected. And Jacob became a great multitude. And when you led his descendants out of Egypt, you brought them to Mount Sinai. You bent down the heavens and shook the earth, and moved the world, and caused the abyss to tremble, and troubled the age. And your glory passed through the four gates of fire and earthquake and wind and ice, to give the law to the descendants of Jacob, and your commandment to the posterity of Israel. Yet, you did not take away their evil heart from them, so that your law might produce fruit in them. For the first Adam, burdened with an evil heart, transgressed and was overcome, as were all those who descended from him. Thus, the disease became ingrained. Though the law was in the hearts of the people, so was the evil root. But what was good departed, while the evil remained. So after the times passed, and the years were completed, you raised up a servant for yourself named David. You commanded him to build a city for your name, and to offer oblations to you there from what is yours. This was done for many years, but the inhabitants of the city transgressed in everything, doing just as Adam and all his descendants had done. For they also were burdened with the evil heart. So you delivered your city into the hands of your enemies. Then I said in my heart, are the deeds of those who inhabit Babel any better? Is that why she has gained dominion over Zion? For when I arrived here, I saw ungodly deeds without number. And my soul has seen many sinners during these 30 years. And my heart was utterly perturbed, because I have seen how you endure those who sin, and have spared those who act wickedly, and how you have ruined your people, and protected your enemies. And you have not informed anyone how your way may be comprehended. Are the deeds of Babel better than those of Zion? Or has another nation known you besides Israel? Or what tribes have believed the covenant as Jacob? Yet their reward has not appeared, nor has their labor borne fruit. For I have traveled widely among the nations, and have seen that they abound in wealth, though they are unmindful of your commandments. Now therefore, weigh our iniquities in the balance against those of the inhabitants of the world, and it will be evident which way the turn of the scale will incline. When have the inhabitants of the earth not sinned in your sight? Or what nation has kept your commandments so well? You may indeed find individuals who have kept your commandments, but nations you will not find. Chapter 4. Then the angel that had been sent to me, whose name was Uriel, answered and said to me,
Since your understanding has utterly failed regarding this world, do you expect to comprehend the way of the Most High?
Then I said, Yes, my Lord. And he replied to me,
I have been sent to show you 3 ways, and to put before you 3 problems. If you can solve one of them for me, then I will show you the way you desire to see, and will teach you why the heart is evil.
I said, Speak, my Lord. And he said to me,
Go, weigh for me the weight of fire, or measure for me a blast of wind, or call back for me the day that has passed.
I answered and said, Who of those that have been born can do this, that you should ask me about such things? And he said to me,
If I had asked you, how many dwellings are in the heart of the sea, Or how many springs are at the source of the abyss? Or how many ways are above the firmament? Or where are the portals of the netherworld? Or where are the entrances to the garden? Perhaps you would have said to me, I never went down into the abyss, nor as yet descended into the netherworld. Neither did I ever ascend into heaven, nor have I entered into the garden. But now I have asked you only about fire and wind, and the day through which you have passed, things from which you cannot be separated. Yet you have given me no answer about them.
And he said to me,
Since you cannot understand the very things that belong to you, that have been associated with you, how then can your vessel comprehend the way of the Most High? Since the way of the Most High has been formed without measure, how, then, can one who is already impaired by the corrupt world understand incorruption?
When I heard this, I fell upon my face and said to him, It would have been better for us never to have been present here than to come here and live in sin and to suffer without understanding why. He answered me and said,
Once upon a time, the forest of trees of the plain went forth, and they held a consultation and said, Come, let us go and make war against the sea, so that it may recede before us, and so that we may make more forests for ourselves. In like manner, the waves of the sea also held a consultation, and said, Come, let us go up and subdue the forest of the plain, so that we may also gain more territory there for ourselves. But the plan of the forest was in vain, for the fire came and consumed it. Likewise, the plan of the waves of the sea was also in vain, for the sand stood firm and blocked them. If now you were a judge between them, which would you undertake to justify, and which to condemn?
I answered and said, Each devised a foolish plan, for the land has been assigned to the forest, and the locale of the sea to carry its waves. He answered me and said,
You have judged rightly, but why have you not judged so in your own case? For as the land has been assigned to the forest and the sea to its waves, so also those who inhabit the earth can understand only what is on the earth. And he who is above the heavens can understand what is above the height of the heavens.
Then I answered and said, I implore you, my Lord, why have I been endowed with the power of understanding? For I did not desire to inquire about the ways above, but about those things that we daily experience. Why has Israel been given over to the nations in disgrace? Why have the people whom you loved been given over to impious tribes? And why has the law of our ancestors been brought to destruction, and the written covenants no longer exist? For we pass from the world like locusts, and our life is like a mist, and we are not worthy to obtain mercy. But what will he do for his name that is invoked over us? It is about these things that I have inquired. He answered me and said,
If you are alive, you will see, and if you live long, you will often marvel, because the age is hurrying swiftly to its end. For this age is not able to bring forth the things that have been promised to the righteous in these times, because this age is full of sadness and infirmities. For the evil that you ask me about has been sown, but its harvest time has not yet come. Therefore, if what has been sown is not reaped, and if the place where the evil has been sown does not pass away, The field where the good has been sown will not come. For from the beginning, a grain of evil seed was sown in Adam's heart, and how much wickedness it has produced until now, and will produce until the time of threshing comes. Calculate now for yourself how much fruit of wickedness a grain of evil seed has produced. When heads of grain without number are sown, how great a threshing floor they will fill.
Then I answered and said, "How long? When will these things come to pass? For our years are few and evil." He answered me and said,
Your haste is unable to exceed that of the Most High. You indeed are in haste for yourself, but the Highest is in haste on behalf of many. Did not the souls of the righteous in their storehouses ask about these matters, saying, How long must we remain here? And when will the harvest of our reward come? And the chief messenger Remiel answered and said, When the number of those like yourselves is completed, for he has weighed the age in the balance, and measured the times by measure, and numbered the times by number, and he will not move or arouse them until that measure is fulfilled.
Then I answered and said, "But O Lord, Lord, behold, all of us are also full of ungodliness. Is it perhaps on our account, on account of the sins of the inhabitants of the earth, that the time of threshing is delayed for the righteous?" He answered me and said,
Go and ask a pregnant woman whether, when her 9 months have been completed, if her womb can constrain the fetus within her any longer.
And I said, "No, Lord, it cannot." And he said to me,
In the netherworld, the storehouses of the souls are like the womb. For just as a woman who is in labor makes haste to escape the pangs of birth, so also do these places hasten to give back those things that were committed to them from the beginning. Then the things that you desire to see will be disclosed to you.
I answered and said, "If I have found favor in your sight, and if it is possible, and if I am worthy, show me this also, whether more time is to come than has passed, or whether the greater part has gone by for us. For I know what is gone by, but I do not know what is to come." And he said to me,
Stand at my right side, and I will show you the interpretation by a parable.
So I stood and looked, and saw a flaming furnace pass by before me. And it came to pass, when the flame had gone by, I looked and saw that the smoke remained. And after this, a cloud full of water passed before me and discharged a heavy and furious downpour of rain. And when the furious rainstorm had passed, drops still remained in the cloud. And he said to me,
Consider it for yourself. For just as the rain is more than the drops, and the fire is greater than the smoke, so the quantity that has passed was far greater, but drops and smoke remain.
Then I prayed and said, "Do you think that I will live until those days? Or who will be alive in those days?" He answered me and said,
Concerning the signs about which you ask me, I can tell you in part. But I was not sent to tell you concerning your life, for I do not know.
Chapter 5.
Now, concerning the signs, behold, The days are coming when the inhabitants of the earth will be seized with great confusion, and the way of truth will be hidden, and the land will be barren of faith. Unrighteousness will increase and become greater than anything you yourself see, and become incomparably greater than anything you have ever heard of. And the region that you now see ruling will be a trackless waste, and men will see the land desolate. But if the Most High permits you to live, you will see it thrown into confusion after the third period. And the sun will suddenly shine at night, and the moon during the day. Blood will drip from wood, and the stone will cry out. The peoples will be troubled, and the courses will be altered. And one in whom the inhabitants of the earth do not anticipate will wield sovereignty, and the birds will fly away together, and the sea of Sodom will cast up fish, and one whom the many do not know will cry out by night, and all will hear his voice. Chasms shall appear in many places, and fire shall often break out, and the wild beasts shall roam beyond their haunts, and menstruous women shall bring forth monsters, and salt water shall be found in the sweet, and all friends shall assault one another. Then reason shall hide itself, and wisdom shall withdraw into its storehouse, and it shall be sought by many, but shall not be found. And unrighteousness and unrestraint shall be multiplied on earth. And one country shall ask its neighbor, "Has righteousness or anyone who does right passed through you?" And it will answer, "No." And at that time men shall hope but not obtain. They shall labor, but their ways shall not prosper. These are the signs that I am permitted to tell you. And if you pray again, and weep as you do now, and fast for 7 days, you will hear yet greater things than these.
Then I woke up, and my body shuddered violently, and my soul was so troubled that it fainted. But the angel who had come to speak with me took hold of me and supported me and set me on my feet. And it came to pass on the second night, Paltiel, a chief of the people, came to me and said,
"Where have you been, and why is your countenance sad? Or do you not know that Israel in the land of their exile has been entrusted to you? Therefore rise and eat some bread, and do not forsake us, like a shepherd who leaves the flock in the clutches of savage wolves."
Then I said to him, "Go away from me, and do not come near me for 7 days. And then you may come to me, and I will tell you the matter." When he heard what I said, he left me. So I fasted 7 days, mourning and weeping, as the angel Uriel had commanded me. But it came to pass after 7 days, that the thoughts of my heart began once more to trouble me intensely. Then my soul received the spirit of understanding, and I began once more to speak words in the presence of the Most High. And I said, "O Lord, Lord, from every forest of the earth and from all its trees, you have chosen one vine for yourself. And from all the lands of the world, you have chosen one region for yourself. And from all the flowers of the world, you have chosen one lily for yourself. And from all the abysses of the sea, you have filled one river for yourself. And from all the cities that have been built, you have consecrated Zion for yourself. And from all the birds that have been created, you have named one dove for yourself. And from all the created flocks, you have provided one sheep for yourself. And from all the multitude of peoples, you have acquired one people for yourself. And to this people, whom you have loved, you have given the law that is approved by all. And now, O Lord, why have you handed the one over to the many, and dishonored the one shoot above the others, and scattered your only one among the many? And those who opposed your commands have trampled on those who believed your covenant. If you really hate your people, they ought to be punished at your own hands. It came to pass when I had spoken these words, the angel who had come to me on the previous night was sent to me. And he said to me,
Listen to me, and I will instruct you. Pay attention to me, and I will tell you more.
Then I said, Speak, my Lord. And he said to me,
Are you greatly disturbed over Israel, or do you love him more than his Maker does?
And I said, No, my Lord. But because of my grief I have spoken. For every hour my heart torments me, while I strive to comprehend the way of the Most High, and to examine the direction of his judgment. And he said to me,
You cannot.
And I said, For what reason, Lord? Why then was I born? Or why did my mother's womb not become my grave, so that I would not see Jacob's travail and the exhaustion of the people of Israel? He said to me,
Count up for me those who have not yet come, and collect for me the spattered raindrops, and make the withered flowers bloom again for me. Open the closed storehouses for me, and bring out for me the unseen powers that are shut up in them. Or show me the image of him whom you have never seen, or show me the picture of a voice. And then I will explain to you the travail that you ask to understand.
And I said, O Lord, Lord, who is able to know these things, except him whose dwelling is not among men? As for me, I am without wisdom. So how can I speak concerning the things that you have asked me? He said to me,
Just as you cannot do one of these things that were mentioned, so you cannot discover my judgment, or the goal of the love that I have promised to my people.
And I said, Yet behold, O Lord, you have promised those who are alive at the end. But what will our predecessors do? Or we, ourselves, or those who come after us? He said to me,
I shall liken my judgment to a crown. Just as there is no disadvantage to the slow, there is no advantage to the fast.
Then I answered and said, Could you not have created them all at the same time? Those who have been, those who now exist, and those who will be, so that you might display your judgment more quickly? He replied to me and said,
The creation cannot proceed more rapidly than the Creator, nor can the world simultaneously hold all those who have been created in it.
And I said, "How can you say to your servant that you will certainly give life to every one of your creatures at the same time? If therefore all creatures will be alive at the same time, and the creation will sustain them, might it even now be able to support all of those present at the same time?" And he said to me,
Ask a woman's womb, and say to it, "If you bear 10 children, why one after another? Therefore, request it to produce 10 at the same time."
And I said, "Of course it cannot, but only each in its own time." And he said to me,
Even so, I have made the earth a womb for those who, in their particular time, come forth upon it. For as an infant does not bring forth, and a woman who has become old does not bring forth any longer, so in the same way I have regulated the world that I created.
Then I inquired and said, "Since you have given me the opportunity, let me speak before you. Is our mother, of whom you have told me, still young? Or is she now approaching old age?" He replied to me,
Ask a woman who bears children, and she will tell you. Say to her, "Why are those whom you have borne recently not like those whom you have borne previously, but smaller in stature?" And she herself will answer you, "Those born in the vigor of youth are different from those born during old age, when the womb is failing." Therefore, you also should consider that each of you are smaller in stature than those who were before you, and those who come after you will be smaller than you, as born of a creation that already is aging and passing the strength of youth.
Then I said, "I implore you, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, show your servant through whom you have willed to visit your creation." Chapter 6. And he said to me,
The beginning is through man, and the end is through myself. For before the circle of the earth existed, before the portals of the world were established, and before the assembled winds blew, and before the rumblings of thunder resounded, and before the flares of lightning flashed, and before the foundations of the garden were laid, and before the beauty of the flowers were seen, and before the forces of motion were established, and before the innumerable hosts of angels were mustered, and before the heights of the air were lifted up, and before the measures of the firmaments were named, and before the footstool of Zion was established, and before the present years were reckoned, and before the imaginations of those who now sin were estranged, and before the accumulators of treasures of faith were sealed, then I planned these things, and they came into being through me alone, and not through another, just as the end will come through me alone, and not through another.
Then I answered and said, "What will mark the division of the times? Or when will be the end of the first age and the beginning of the age to follow?" And he said to me,
From Abraham to Isaac, because Jacob and Esau were born from him. For from the beginning, Jacob's hand held fast to Esau's heel. Now Esau is the end of this age, and Jacob is the beginning of the age to follow. The beginning of a man is his hand, and the end of a man is his heel. Seek for nothing else between the heel and the hand, Ezra.
And I answered and said, O Lord, Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, show your servant the last of your signs, a portion of which you showed me a part on a previous night. And he answered and said to me,
Rise to your feet, and you will hear a full, resounding voice. And if the place where you are standing is greatly shaken while the voice is speaking, do not be terrified, because the word concerns the end, and the foundations of the earth will understand that the speech concerns them. They will tremble and be shaken, for they know that their end must be changed.
And when I heard this, I rose to my feet and listened. And behold, a voice spoke, whose sound was like the sound of mighty waters. And it said,
Behold, the days are coming when I draw near to visit the inhabitants of the earth, and when I require from the doers of iniquity the penalty of their iniquity, and when the humiliation of Zion reaches its fullness. And when the seal is placed upon the age that is about to pass away, then I shall do these signs. The book shall be opened before the face of the firmament, and all shall see my judgments simultaneously. Year-old infants shall speak with their voices, and pregnant women shall give birth to premature infants at 3 and 4 months, and these shall live and leap about. Sown places shall suddenly appear unsown, and full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. And the trumpet shall sound aloud, and when all hear it, they shall suddenly be terrified. And it shall come to pass, at that time friends shall make war upon friends like enemies. The earth and its inhabitants shall be terrified, and the springs of the fountains shall stand still, so that for 3 hours they shall not flow. And it shall come to pass that whoever survives all these things that I have foretold to you shall be saved, and shall see my salvation and the end of my world. And they shall see those who were taken up, who from their birth have not tasted death, and the heart of the earth's inhabitants shall be changed and converted to a different spirit. For evil shall be blotted out, and deceit shall be quenched. Faithfulness shall flourish, and corruption shall be overcome. And the truth, which has been fruitless for so long, shall be exposed.
And it came to pass while he spoke to me, behold, little by little, the place where I was standing began to rock to and fro. And he said to me,
I have come to show you these things this night. Therefore, if you will pray again and fast again for 7 days, I will again declare to you greater things than these, because your voice has surely been heard before the Most High. For the Mighty One has seen your uprightness, and has also observed the purity that you have maintained from your youth. On account of this, he has sent me to reveal all these things to you, and to say to you, believe and do not be afraid. Do not be quick to vainly speculate about the former times, then you will not act hastily in the last times.
Now it came to pass after this, I wept again, and fasted 7 days in the same way as before, in order to complete the 3 weeks that had been prescribed for me. Then it came to pass on the 8th night, my heart was once more troubled within me, and I began to speak in the presence of the Most High. My spirit was greatly aroused, and my soul was in distress. I said, O Lord God, you have indeed spoken at the beginning of creation, and said on the first day, "Let heaven and earth be made." And your word accomplished the work. At that time, the unseen power was blowing fiercely, and darkness and silence embraced everything, and the sound of man's voice was not yet before you. Then you commanded a ray of light to be brought out from your storehouses, so that your works could be seen. On the second day, you created the unseen power of the firmament, and commanded it to divide and separate the waters, so that one part might recede above, and the other part remain below. On the third day, you commanded the waters to be gathered together in the seventh part of the earth. 6 parts you dried up and preserved, so that some of them might serve before you to be sowed and cultivated. For your word went forth, and at once the work was done. Immediately, fruit came forth in immeasurable abundance, and a varied appeal to the taste, and flowers of inimitable color, and trees of incalculable variety and inexpressible fragrance. These were made on the third day. On the fourth day, you commanded the brightness of the sun, the light of the moon, and the arrangement of the stars to come into being. And you commanded them to serve man, who was about to be formed. But on the 5th day, you commanded the 7th part, where the water had been gathered together, to bring forth living creatures, birds and fishes. And so it was done. The mute and lifeless water produced living creatures as it was commanded, so that the nations may extol your wonderful works. Then you preserved 2 living creatures. The one you called Behemoth, and the other you named Leviathan. And later, you separated one from the other. For the 7th part, where the water had been gathered together, was unable to hold them both. And the one part that had been dried up on the 3rd day, where there are 1,000 mountains, you gave to Behemoth to live in. But to Leviathan, you gave the 7th part, the watery part. And you have kept them to be eaten by whomever you wish, and when you wish. On the 6th day, you commanded the earth to bring forth before you cattle, wild beasts, and creeping things. And over these you placed Adam, as ruler over all the works that you had made. And from him, all of us whom you chose as a people have descended. O Lord, I have spoken all these things before you, because you have said that it was for our sakes that you created this world. As for the other nations that have descended from Adam, you declared them to be as nothing, like spittle, and you have compared their profusion to a drop from a bucket. And now, O Lord, these nations, which are reputed to be as nothing, domineer over us and devour us. But we, your people whom you have called your firstborn, only begotten, kin, and dearly beloved, have been given into their hands. If the world has indeed been created for us, why do we not enjoy possession of the heritage of our world? How long will this continue? Chapter 7. And it came to pass when I had finished speaking these words, the angel who had been sent to me on the previous nights was sent to me again. He said to me,
Rise, Ezra, and listen to the words that I have come to speak to you.
And I said, Speak, my Lord. And he said to me,
There is a sea set in a wide expanse, deep and vast, but its entrance is confined to a narrow space like a river. If one earnestly desires to reach the sea, to look at it, or to rule over it, how can he reach the broad part except by passing through the narrow part? Another example. There is a built city set on an open plain, and it is full of all good things. But its entrance is narrow and set in a precipitous place, so that there is fire on the right side and deep water on the left. And there is but a single narrow path lying between them, that is, between the fire and the water, so that only one man can walk on the path at a time. If now the city is given to a man as an inheritance, how will the heir claim the inheritance if he does not traverse the dangerous path set before him?
I said, That is right, Lord. And he said to me,
So also is Israel's portion. For I made the world for their sakes, and when Adam transgressed my statutes, what had been made was judged. And so the entrances of this world were made narrow and sorrowful and toilsome. They are few and evil, full of dangers and involved in great hardships. But the entrances of that coming world are broad and safe, and yield the fruit of immortality. Therefore, unless the living enter through the difficult and vain experiences, they will be unable to receive those things that have been reserved for them. Now, why do you agitate yourself, seeing that you are perishable? And why do you torment yourself, seeing that you are mortal? And why have you not considered in your mind what is to come, rather than what is now present?
Then I answered and said, O Lord, Lord, behold, you have ordained in your law that the righteous shall inherit these things, but that the ungodly shall perish. Therefore, the righteous can endure narrow circumstances, because they have hope for the spacious circumstances. But those who have behaved wickedly have suffered the narrow circumstances, and will never see the spacious ones. And he said to me,
You are not a judge superior to God, or wiser than the Most High. Let the many who now exist perish, rather than that the law of God that is set before them be disregarded. For the Lord strictly commanded those coming into the world when they came what they should do to live, and what they should observe to avoid punishment. Nevertheless, they were disobedient and spoke against him. They devised vain thoughts for themselves, and proposed devious frauds for themselves. They even denied the existence of the Most High, and they ignored his ways. They scorned his law and disavowed his covenants. They have been unfaithful to his statutes and have not performed his works. Therefore, Ezra, emptiness to the empty, and fullness to the full. For behold, the time will come when the signs that I have foretold to you will come to pass, that the invisible city shall appear, and the land that now is hidden shall be disclosed. And everyone who has been delivered from the foretold evils shall see my wonders, for my anointed shall be revealed, together with those who are with him, and those who remain shall rejoice 400 years. After those years my son, the anointed, shall die, as well as all who draw human breath. Then the world shall be turned back to primeval silence for 7 days, as it was at the first beginnings, so that no one will remain. And after 7 days the world that is not yet awake shall be roused, and what is corruptible shall pass away. And the earth shall give back those who are asleep in it, and the dust shall release those who rest there in silence, and the storehouses shall give up the souls that have been entrusted to them. And the Most High shall appear on the seat of judgment, and compassion shall pass away, and mercy shall cease, and patience shall be withdrawn. But only judgment shall remain, truth shall stand, and faithfulness shall grow strong. And recompense shall follow, and the reward shall be manifested. Righteous deeds shall awake, and unrighteous deeds shall not sleep. Then the pit of torment shall appear, and opposite it shall be the place of rest. And the furnace of Gehenna shall be disclosed, and opposite it the Garden of Eden. Then the Most High shall say to the nations that have been raised, consider now and understand whom you have denied, whom you have not served, whose faithfulness you have despised. Look on this side and on that. Here are delight and rest, and there are fire and torments. This is what he shall speak to them on the day of judgment, a day that has neither sun, nor moon, nor stars, nor cloud, nor thunder, nor lightning, nor wind, nor water, nor air, nor darkness, nor evening, nor morning, nor summer, nor spring, nor harvest, nor heat, nor frost, nor cold, nor hail, nor rain, nor dew, nor noon, nor night, nor dawn, nor shining, nor brightness, nor light, but only the splendor of the glory of the Most High, by which all shall see what has been destined. The time shall last for a week of years. This is my judgment and its disposition, and to you alone I have shown these things.
And I answered and said, O Lord, Lord, I said before, and I say now, blessed are those who are alive and keep the commandment laid down by you. But what about those for whom I asked? For who is there among the living who has not sinned? Or who is there among those born who has not violated your covenant? And now I see that the coming world will bring delight to the few, but torments to the many. For an evil heart has grown up in us, which has alienated us from this, and has driven us into corruption in the ways of death, and has shown us the paths of perdition, and removed us far from life. And that, not merely for a few, but for almost all who have been created. He answered me and said,
Listen to me, Ezra, and I will instruct you and admonish you once more. For this reason the Most High has made not one world, but two. Inasmuch as you have said that the righteous are not many but few, while the ungodly abound, hear the explanation for this. If you have just a few precious stones, will you add them to lead and clay?
I said, Lord, how could that be? And he said to me,
Not only that, but ask the earth and she will tell you. Speak to her and she will enlighten you. Say to her, You produce gold and silver and bronze, and iron and lead and clay. But silver is more abundant than gold, and bronze than silver, and iron than bronze, and lead than iron, and clay than lead. Therefore, judge for yourself which things are precious and desirable, those that are abundant or those that are rare.
I said, O Lord, Lord, what is plentiful is of less worth, for what is more rare is more precious. He answered me and said,
Consider within yourself what you have reflected upon. For he who possesses what is hard to come by rejoices more than he who has what is plentiful. So it will be also with the promised judgment. For I will rejoice over the few who will be saved, inasmuch as they are the ones who have made my glory to prevail now, and through them my name has now been honored. And I will not grieve over the great number of those who perish, for they are the ones who even now are made like a mist, and are similar to a flame and smoke. They are set on fire and burn hotly, and are extinguished.
I replied and said, O earth, what have you brought forth? If the mind is made out of the dust like the other created things. For it would have been better if the dust itself had not been born, so that the mind might not have been made from it. Nevertheless, the mind grows with us, and therefore we are tormented, because we are aware of our perishing. Let the human race lament, but let the wild animals of the field be glad. Let all who have been born lament, but let the quadrupeds in the flocks rejoice. For they are far better off than us, for they do not expect a judgment, and they are unaware of any torment or salvation promised to them after death. For what does it profit us to be preserved alive, only to be cruelly tormented? For all who have been born are entangled in iniquities, and are full of sins, and burdened with transgressions. And if after death we were not to come into judgment, perhaps it would have been better for us. He answered me and said,
When the Most High made the world, and Adam and all his descendants, he first ordained the judgment and the matters pertaining to the judgment. But now, understand from your own words, for you have said that the mind grows with us. Therefore, for this reason, those who live on earth shall be tormented, because though they had understanding, they committed iniquity, and though they received the commandments, they did not keep them. And though they obtained the law, they dealt unfaithfully with what they received. What then? will they have to say at the judgment, or how will they answer in the last times? How long the Most High has been patient with those who inhabit the world, and not for their sake, but because of the times that he has foreordained.
I answered and said, If I have found favor in your sight, O Lord, also show the following to your servant. Whether after death, as soon as each of us surrenders his soul, will we really be kept in rest until those times come when you will renew the creation? Or will we be tormented at once? He answered me and said,
I will also show you this, but do not entangle yourself with scorners, nor number yourself among those who are tormented. For you have a treasure of works stored up with the Most High, but it will not be revealed to you until the last times. For the conception of death is this: when the decisive decree has gone out from the Most High that a person shall die, as the soul leaves the body to return again to him who gave it, first of all, it adores the glory of the Most High. And if it is one of those who have scorned and have not adhered to the ways of the Most High, who have despised his law and hated those who fear God, such souls will not enter into habitations, but will immediately roam about in torments, ever grieving and sad in 7 ways. The first way, because they have scorned the law of the Most High. The second way, because now they are unable to repent and do good so that they may live. The third way, that they shall see the reward deposited for those who are faithful to the covenants of the Most High. The fourth way, that they shall contemplate the torment deposited for themselves in the end. The fifth way, that they shall see how the storehouses of the others are guarded by angels in profound quietness. The sixth way, that they shall see how some of them will immediately cross over into torments. The seventh way, which is worse than all the ways that have been mentioned, because they shall utterly waste away in confusion and be consumed with shame, and will wither away in fears when they see the glory of the Most High, before whom they sinned while they were alive, and in whose presence they are to be judged in the last times. Now this is the order of those who have kept the ways of the Most High, when they shall be separated from their corruptible vessel. During the time that they lived in it, they diligently served the Most High, and withstood danger every hour, so that they might perfectly keep the law of the lawgiver. Therefore, this is the teaching concerning them. First of all, they shall with great joy see the glory of him who receives them, for they will have rest in 7 orders. The first order, because they have striven with great diligence to overcome the evil thought that was molded with them, so that it might not lead them astray from life into death. The second order, because they see the perplexity in which the souls of the wicked wander and the punishment that awaits them. The third order, that they see the witness that he who formed them bears concerning them, that throughout their life they kept the law which was given to them in faith. The fourth order, that they understand the rest that they now enjoy, being gathered into their storehouses and guarded by angels in profound quietness, and the glory waiting for them in the last days. The fifth order, that they rejoice that they have now escaped what is corruptible, and shall inherit what is to come. But in addition, they shall see the straits and toils from which they have been delivered, and the spacious liberty that they are to receive and enjoy in immortality. The sixth order, when it is revealed to them how their face is to shine like the sun, and how they are to be made like the light of the stars, no longer corruptible. The seventh order, which is greater than all that have been mentioned. Because they shall rejoice with boldness, and shall be confident without confusion, and shall be glad without fear, for they press forward to see the face of him whom they served in life, and from whom they are to receive their reward when glorified. This is the order of the souls of the righteous that have been mentioned above, and of the previously mentioned ways of torment, which those who fail to observe will suffer from now on.
Then I answered and said, Therefore, after the souls have been separated from the bodies, will time be given to them to see what you have described to me? He said to me,
They shall have freedom for 7 days, so that during these 7 days they may see the things of which have been predicted, and afterwards they shall be gathered in their storehouses.
I answered and said, If I have found favor in your sight, also make clear to me, your servant, whether on the day of judgment the righteous will be able to intercede for the wicked, or to entreat the Most High on their behalf, fathers for sons, or sons for fathers, brothers for brothers, relatives for their kindred, or friends for their dearest ones. He answered me and said,
Since you have found favor in my sight, I will make it clear to you. The day of judgment is decisive and displays the seal of truth to all. Just as now a father cannot commission his son, or a son his father, or a master his servant, or a friend his dearest one, to be ill or sleep or eat or be healed in his place, so no one will ever pray for another on that day, neither will anyone lay a burden on another, for then all will bear their own righteousness or unrighteousness.
I answered and said, Then why do we find that first Abraham interceded for the Sodomites, and Moses for our fathers who sinned in the desert, and Yahshua after him for Israel in the days of Achan, and Samuel in the days of Saul, and David on account of the plague, and Solomon on behalf of those at the dedication, and Elijah for those who received the rain, and for the one who was dead that he might live, and Hezekiah for the people in the days of Sennacherib, and many others prayed for many. So if now, when corruption has increased and unrighteousness has multiplied, the righteous have prayed for the wicked, why will it not be so then as well? He answered me and said,
This present age is not the end. The full glory does not remain in it. Therefore, those who were strong prayed for the weak. But the day of judgment will be the end of this age and the beginning of the immortal age to come, in which corruption has passed away, sinful indulgence has been abolished, faithlessness has been cut off, and righteousness has increased and truth has arisen. Therefore, no one will then be able to have mercy upon the one who has been condemned in the judgment, or to harm the one who is victorious.
I answered and said, This is my first and last comment. It would have been better if the earth had not produced Adam, or else, when it had produced him, had restrained him from sinning. For what good is it for any of us to live in sorrow now, with the expectation of punishment after death? Oh, Adam, what have you done? For though it was you who sinned, the fall was not yours alone, but ours too, who descended from you. For what good is it for us if an immortal time has been promised to us, when in fact we have done deeds that bring death? And what good is it that an everlasting hope has been promised to us, when in fact we have miserably failed? Or that safe and healthful habitations have been reserved for us, when in fact we have lived wickedly? Or that the glory of the Most High will defend those who have led a pure life, but we have walked in the most wicked ways? Or that a garden shall be revealed, whose fruit remains unspoiled, and in which are abundance and healing, when in fact we cannot enter it, because we have lived in perverse ways? Or that the faces of those who exercise self-restraint shall shine more brilliantly than the stars, though in fact our faces shall be blacker than darkness. For while we lived and committed iniquity, we did not realize what we were to endure after death. He answered and said to me,
This is the significance of the contest which must be waged by those born on earth. If he is defeated, he shall suffer what you have said. But if he is victorious, he shall receive what I have said. For this is the way of which Moses, while he was alive, spoke to the people, saying, Choose life for yourself, so that you may live. But they did not believe him, or the prophets after him, or even myself, who have spoken to them. Therefore, there will not be grief at their destruction, as there will be joy over those who have believed.
I answered and said, I know, O Lord, that the Most High is now called the Merciful, because he has mercy on those who have not yet come into the world. And the Gracious One, because he is gracious to those who turn in repentance to his law. And the long-suffering, because he manifests long-suffering toward those who have sinned, since they are his own creatures. And the Bountiful, because he would rather give than take away. And abundant in compassion, because he makes his compassions abound more and more to those now living, and to those who are gone, and to those yet to come. For if he did not make his compassions abound, the world, along with its inhabitants, would not have life. And he is called the Giver, because if he did not give out of his goodness so that those who have committed iniquities might be relieved of them, not 1/10,000th of mankind would be able to have life. And the Judge, because if he did not pardon those who were created by his word and blot out the multitude of their sins, there would be left only very few of the innumerable multitude. Chapter 8. He answered me and said,
The Most High made this world for the sake of many, but the world to come for the sake of only a few. But let me tell you a parable, Ezra. Just as when you inquire of the earth, it will tell you that it provides a large amount of clay from which earthenware is made, but only a little dust from which gold comes. So too is the course of the present world. Many have been created, but only a few shall be saved.
I answered and said, Then drink your fill of understanding, O my soul, and drink wisdom, O my heart. For you entered the world involuntarily, and will depart without consent. For you have been allotted only a brief span of time to live. O Lord above us, if you will, grant permission to your servant that we may pray before you, and plant a seed in our heart, and cultivate our understanding, so that fruit may be produced, so that every mortal who bears the likeness of a man may be able to live. For you are the only one, and we are one formation of your hands, as you have declared. Now when you give life to the body that is fashioned in the womb, and furnish it with members, what you have created subsists amid fire and water. And for 9 months, your handiwork bears your creature that has been created in it. But that which shelters and that which is sheltered are both sheltered by your shelter. And when the womb discharges what has been created in it, you have commanded that out of the members themselves, that is, out of the breasts, milk, the fruit of the breasts, should be supplied, so that what has been fashioned may be nourished for a time. And afterwards, you will guide it in your mercy, nurture it in your righteousness, and instruct it in your law, and reprove it in your wisdom. Then you kill it, it is your own creation, and restore it to life, it is your own handiwork. If therefore, by your command, you will suddenly and quickly destroy what was fashioned with many labors, for what purpose was it made? And now, I will speak out. You know best about all men, but about your people, I am dejected, and I lament over your heritage, and I sorrow because of Israel, and I am perturbed on account of the seed of Jacob. Therefore, I desire to pray before you for myself and for them, for I see the failings of us who inhabit the earth. And now, I have also heard of the coming judgment. Therefore, hear my voice and understand my words, and I will speak before you. The beginning of the words of Ezra's prayer, before he was taken, he said, O Lord, you who inhabit the age, whose eyes are lifted up, and whose chambers are in the air, whose throne is beyond measure, and whose glory is beyond comprehension, before whom the hosts of angels stand trembling, and at whose command they are changed to wind and fire, whose word is trustworthy, and whose utterances are steadfast, whose command is mighty, and whose ordinance is fearful, whose look dries up the abysses, and whose indignation makes the mountains melt away, and whose truth is established forever. O Lord, listen to the prayer of your servant, and give ear to the petition of your creature, and attend to my words. For as long as I live, I will speak. And as long as I have discernment, I must respond. Do not gaze upon the sins of your people, but upon those who serve you in truth. Do not take note of the endeavors of the impious, but of the endeavors of those who have kept your covenants amid afflictions. Do not think of those who have conducted themselves wickedly in your sight, but remember those who have voluntarily acknowledged that you are to be feared. Do not decree the destruction of those who have lived like cattle, but be mindful of those who have gloriously taught your law. Do not be angry with those who have been deemed worse than beasts, but love those who have always put their trust in your glory. For we and our fathers have pursued the ways of death. Yet, it is because of us sinners that you are called the merciful. For if you have desired to have mercy upon us, we who are without works of righteousness, then you will be called the merciful. For the righteous, whose many works are laid up with you, shall receive their reward by virtue of their own deeds. But what is man that you should be angry with him, or the mortal race that you should be so embittered against it? For in truth, there is not one born who is without sin, nor is there one who exists who is without fault. For in this, O Lord, your goodness will be declared when you are merciful to those who have no storehouse of good works. He answered me and said,
On some matters you have spoken correctly, and it will turn out according to your words. For indeed, I will not concern myself about the fashioning of those who have sinned, or about their death, or their judgment, or their destruction. But I will rejoice over the creation of the righteous, over their pilgrimage as well, and their salvation, and the reception of their reward. As I have spoken, therefore so it shall be. For just as the farmer sows an abundance of seeds in the ground, and plants a multitude of seedlings, and yet not all that have been sown will come up in due season, and not all that were planted will take root, so also not all who have been sown in the world will live.
I answered and said, If I have found favor in your sight, let me speak. If the farmer's seed does not come up because it has not received your rain in due season, or if it has been ruined by too much rain, it perishes. But man, who has been formed by your hands, and is called your own image because he is made like you, and for whose sake you have formed all things, would you compare him to the farmer's seed? Surely not, O Lord above. But spare your people, and have mercy upon your inheritance. For you have mercy upon your own creation. He answered me and said,
The present is for those present. The future is for those to come. For you come far short of being able to love my creation more than I love it. But you have often reckoned your soul among the unrighteous. Never do so. But even in this respect you will be praiseworthy before the Most High, because you have humbled your soul as is proper for you, and have not reckoned your soul to be among the righteous. You will receive the greatest glory, for many miseries will afflict the world's inhabitants in the end, because they have walked in great pride. But think of your own case, and inquire concerning the glory of those who are like yourself, because it is for all of you that the garden is opened, the tree of life is planted, the age to come is prepared, delight is provided, a city is built, rest is appointed, goodness is achieved, and wisdom pre-established. The root of evil is sealed up from you, infirmity is banished from you, and death is hidden. The netherworld has fled, and corruption into oblivion. Afflictions have passed away, and in the end, the treasure of immortality is made manifest. Therefore, ask no further questions about the great number of those who perish. For when they had opportunity to choose, they despised the Most High, and were contemptuous of his law, and abandoned his ways. Moreover, they have even trampled on his righteous ones, and said in their hearts that there is no God, though they knew well that they must die. For just as the things that have been predicted await you, so the thirst and torment already prepared await them. For the Most High did not intend for man to be destroyed, but those who were created have themselves defiled the name of him who made them, and have been ungrateful to him who prepared life for them. Therefore, my judgment is now drawing near. I have not shown this to all people, but only to you and a few like you.
Then I answered and said, O Lord, you have already shown me a great number of the signs that you will perform in the last times. But you have not shown me when you will do them. Chapter 9. He answered me and said,
Measure carefully in your mind, and when you see that some of the predicted signs have occurred, then you will know that it is indeed the time when the Most High is about to visit the world that he has made. So when the following appear in the world, earthquakes in places, tumult of peoples, intrigues of nations, wavering of leaders, confusion of princes, then you will know that these are the things that the Most High spoke about from the days that were of old, from the beginning. For just as with everything that has taken place in the world, its beginning is evident, and its end manifest. So also are the times of the Most High. The beginnings are attested by wonders and mighty works, and the end by penalties and in signs. It shall be that everyone who will be saved, and who will be able to escape by virtue of his works, or by the faith in which he trusted, he will survive the dangers that have been predicted, and will see my salvation in my land and within the borders, which I have set apart for myself from the beginning. Then those who have abandoned my ways shall be amazed, and those who have contemptuously rejected them shall live in torments. For everyone who failed to acknowledge me in their lifetime, though they received my benefits, and everyone who scorned my law while they still had freedom, and, while the opportunity for repentance was still open to them, nevertheless failed to understand it, even scorned it, these must acknowledge it by torment after death. Therefore, do not continue to be inquisitive about how the wicked will be afflicted, but inquire how the righteous will live, those to whom the age belongs, and for whose sake the age was made.
I answered and said, I said before, and I say now, and will say it again, the lost are more numerous than those who will live. as a wave is greater than a drop of water." He answered me and said,
As is the field, so is the seed. And as are the flowers, so are the colors. And as is the work, so is the product. And as is the farmer, so is the threshing floor. For there was a time in this age when I was preparing for those who now exist, before the world was made for them to live in. And no one opposed me then, for no one existed. But now those who have been created in this world, though supplied with both an unfailing table and an inexhaustible pasture, have become corrupt in their conduct. So I considered my world and saw that it was lost. I saw that my earth was in peril because of the devices of those who had come into it. And I saw and spared some with great difficulty, and saved for myself one grape out of a cluster, and one plant out of a great forest. So let the multitude that has been born in vain perish, but let my grape and my plant be saved, because with much labor I have perfected them. Now, wait another 7 days. However, do not fast during them, but go into a field of flowers where no house has been built, and eat only of the flowers of the field, and taste no meat, and drink no wine, but eat only flowers. If you will do this, and pray to the Most High without ceasing, then I will come and speak with you.
So I went, as he directed me, into the field called Ardat. There I sat among the flowers and ate of the plants of the field. And the nourishment they afforded satisfied me. And it came to pass after 7 days, while I lay on the grass, my heart was troubled again, as it had been before. Then my mouth was opened, and I began to speak before the Most High and said, O Lord, you indeed revealed yourself to our ancestors in the wilderness, when they came out from Egypt, and when they came into the untrodden and unfruitful wilderness. You said, Hear me, O Israel, and give heed to my words, O seed of Jacob. For I am sowing my law in you, and it shall bring forth fruit in you, and you shall be eternally glorified through it. However, our fathers who received the law did not keep it, nor did they observe the statutes. Nevertheless, the fruit of the law did not perish, for it could not, because it was yours. Yet those who received it perished, because they did not keep what had been sown in them. And behold, this is the rule, that when the ground has received seed, or the sea a ship, or any dish some food or drink, and when it happens that what was sown, or what was launched, or what was put in it is destroyed, they are destroyed. But the vessels that held them remain. Yet, with us it has not been so. For we who have received the law and sinned will perish, as well as our hearts that received it. However, the law does not perish, but endures in its glory. When I said these things in my heart, I looked around, and on my right, I saw a woman. She was mourning and weeping with a loud voice, and was deeply grieved in her soul. Her clothes were torn, and there were ashes on her head. Then I dismissed the thoughts that I had been occupied with, and turned towards her, and said to her, Why are you weeping, and why are you grieved in soul? She said to me,
My Lord, allow me to weep for myself and continue to mourn, for I am greatly embittered in soul and deeply distressed.
I said to her, What has happened to you? Tell me. And she said to me,
Your servant was barren and had no child, though I lived with my husband for 30 years. Every hour and every day for 30 years I prayed to the Most High night and day. And after 30 years God heard your handmaid and looked upon my disgrace and considered my distress and gave me a son. I rejoiced greatly over him, I along with my husband and all my citizens, and we gave great glory to the Mighty One. And I brought him up with great pains. After he had grown up, I came to take a wife for him, and I set a day for the marriage feast.
Chapter 10.
But it happened that when my son entered his wedding chamber, he fell over and died. So all of us extinguished our lamps, and all of my citizens rose to console me. I remained quiet until the evening of the second day. But when all of them had ceased consoling me, encouraging me to be quiet, I arose in the night and fled, and I came to this field, as you see. And I am not going to return to the city, but will remain here, and I will neither eat nor drink, but will mourn and fast incessantly until I die.
Then I broke off the ponderings which I was occupied with until now, and answered indignantly and said, You most foolish of women, do you not see our plight in what has happened to us? For Zion, the mother of us all, is in deep grief and great distress. It is most appropriate to mourn now, because all of us are mourning, and to be sorrowful, because all of us are sorrowing. However, you are sorrowing for one son, but we, over the whole world, for our mother. Now ask the earth, and she will tell you that she is the one who ought to mourn over so many who germinate upon her. And from the beginning, all have been born of her, and others will come. And behold, almost all walk straight to perdition, and a great number of them will come to doom. Who then ought to mourn the more, she who lost so great a number, or you who are grieving for one alone? But should you say to me, My lamentation is not like the earth's, for I have lost the fruit of my womb, which I brought forth in pain and bore in sorrow, whereas the earth generates in its own way. The multitude who is currently in it goes out as it came in. Then I would say to you, just as you gave birth in travail, so from the beginning the earth also has given her fruit, that is, man, to him who created her. Now therefore, keep your sorrow to yourself, and bravely bear the calamities that have come upon you. For if you acknowledge the decree of God to be right, you will receive your son back in due time, and will be highly extolled among women. Therefore, go into the city to your husband. She said to me,
I will not do so, nor will I enter into the city, but I will die here.
So I spoke to her further and said, Do not do that, but let yourself be persuaded. For how many are the calamities of Zion? And be consoled because of the distress of Jerusalem. For you see how our sanctuary has been demolished, our altar thrown down, our temple destroyed. Our harp has been laid low, our hymns have been silenced, and our rejoicing has been ended. The light of our lampstand has been extinguished. The ark of our covenant has been plundered. Our holy things have been polluted. And the name by which we are called has been profaned. Our children have suffered abuse. Our priests have been burned. Our Levites have gone into exile. Our virgins have been defiled, and our women have been ravished. Our righteous men have been carried off. Our little ones have been cast out. Our young men have been enslaved, and our strong men rendered impotent. And worst of all, the seal of Zion has been deprived of its glory and given over into the hands of those who hate us. Therefore, shake off your great sadness and lay aside your many sorrows, so that the Mighty One may be merciful to you, and the Most High may give you rest from your troubles. And it came to pass, while I was speaking to her, her face suddenly began to shine exceedingly. Her countenance flashed like lightning, so that I was too frightened to approach her, and my heart was terrified. While I was wondering what this meant, behold, she suddenly uttered a fearful cry so loud that the earth shook at the sound. When I looked up, the woman was no longer visible to me, but there was an established city at the place, upon conspicuously massive foundations. I was afraid, and cried out with a loud voice and said, "Where is the angel Uriel who came to me at first? For it was he who brought overpowering bewilderment upon me. My end has become corruption, and my prayer a reproach." While I was speaking these words, the angel who had first come to me came to me once more. And when he saw me lying there like a corpse, deprived of my senses, he